Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Mike Russo, Anthony LaPanta, coming to you on the day after the Wild's 3-2 overtime victory over the Dallas Stars to even up this best-of-7 series, make it a best-of-3, heading to Dallas Tuesday night for an actually a palatable 7 p.m. start. Very excited about that one, Anthony. Anthony, great goal call. I know this is the stuff that you live for as a play-by-play guy. And man, you called it great, as did Joe O'Donnell, I might add.
Yeah, these are those moments. There's no doubt. And, there's nothing like playoff hockey, and certainly nothing like playoff hockey in overtime. And you always just hope you get it right. And the moment is what's cool. And you're just always hoping that you do it justice and that you then let the person, the viewer at home, feel like they're at the rink. And because the rink was electric last night. It was really an amazing atmosphere in there, and just such an unbelievable hockey game. And it was fitting that it was the best players on the ice that made the play to win it. And I thought Matt Boldy had been terrific all night for Minnesota, and it was great to see him get rewarded after he had been denied on so many great chances over the last couple of games.
What is it about Jonas Brodin and Jared Spurgeon that allows them to get it done so often? If you remember last night, Anthony, not to put a hex on them, but they were probably the only D pair that wasn't pinned in their own zone at any point in that game. And as you've pointed out, there's just a chemistry with these two. So it was also cool to see the captain, make the play for Matt Boldy's winner.
Yeah, I really thought Spurgeon was great last night. And I know Brock Faber is going to get a lot of the notoriety and he was terrific. He ended up with 2 points in the game. But I thought Spurgeon's play was likely to be overlooked by a lot. I just thought he was just really good all night long. And their ability to skate, their ability to read off of each other, know where the other's going to be, has been the key to their success. And for years, we've always looked at them and thought, what if those two guys could just play together all the time? And the way the roster's been built, it's never quite worked that way, where they've always had to split them up. And as soon as Hughes arrived, John Hines knew he could throw those two guys together, and they've been great ever since. I know we've talked about the fact that their numbers in the regular season were the best in the NHL in terms of goals against per 60 minutes when they're on the ice. And in the playoffs, it's been pretty close to that. We had a graphic last night. We didn't actually, I don't believe we used it in the show, but no defensive pairing had played more minutes than Hughes and Faber without an even strength goal against. And as you go through all these groups that hadn't given up a goal, all of a sudden there's Spurgeon and Brodin having given up one in like 50 plus minutes together so far in the playoffs. And it's just kind of overlooked because all the talk has been about Quinn Hughes and Brock Faber. Well, Jared Spurgeon and Jonas Brodin have been going against the big guns for Dallas throughout this series and have been on the ice for one even strength goal against. And it feels like you can count the chances on one hand. They don't get caught in their own zone because of their ability to skate.
147 minutes since the Dallas Stars last scored an even strength goal. They only have 3 even strength goals in the series. It's not like they're not getting their chances, though, Anthony. They're just not finishing in my eyes, especially their bottom 6, who I don't believe has a point yet in the series. But last night we saw, there were some unbelievably close calls around the Wild net, especially in the third period. Posts and things like that. They obviously had the 2 defense pairs and the fourth and third lines I believe it was. No, the second and third lines pinned in second and fourth lines pinned in their zones, for 5 minutes of the second period. So it is, to use what you said last game, if they score there, we're having a different discussion,
Right. Without a doubt. Or if Foligno's goal doesn't go in, we're having a totally different discussion. And the point I was trying to make with that is that when you start to look ahead at the next game, and I thought John Hines put it really well in his morning availability the day before the game. We're in the playoffs. The challenge is that you have to be able to focus on the next game because the games are separate entities. And when you lose one, you feel like the sky is falling, and for fans anyway, and we're never going to win another game. It's over. It's done. And if you win one, you feel like they're starting to engrave names in the cup. And you have to be able to say, all right, well, that one's done. Now what's the next one? And then within that, you have to be able to look and say, okay, we lost this game, but what was the problem and what can be changed? And for Minnesota, I felt like there were a lot of things in game 3 that you would say, well, if we do that again, you're probably going to win the game. If Kaprizov's shot goes barring in instead of barring out, it's a totally different conversation. So now if you're Dallas, I'm sure you're looking at this saying, look, I mean, the Wild got a couple bounces in that game, and if they don't, what was wrong with our game? What prevented us? And I think both teams have things they have to do better. There's no doubt. And for Minnesota, it remains penalty kill and discipline. And in game 4, they had the discipline. They still didn't have the penalty kill, but they had the discipline. They were only short twice. And that's the difference in that game. For Dallas, I think, yes, they've had some chances, but it doesn't feel like they've had the in-close great looks. Even the segment you're talking about where the Wild were pinned in their own zone, most of their shots came from the perimeter. And Wallstedt had good looks at all of them, and his rebound control has been really good. But I think the Wild have done a good job keeping Dallas to the outside. So I think the challenge, Dallas was one of the best teams in the NHL throughout the season on getting shots and goals from inside of 15 feet. And neither one of these teams has done much of that in this series.
We saw a great goaltender duel last night. Jake Ottinger was excellent, I thought. Obviously had the unbelievable save on Matt Boldy in overtime before Boldy scored the winner.
And right before that had stopped Eriksson Ek on what was probably a better save with his right pad going across the crease and got a skate on a terrific look for Eriksson Ek.
And on the other end of the ice, I mean, Jesper Wallstedt just continues to have nerves of steel. I thought was excellent. Made a couple huge saves before the winning goal. And, you got to hand it to this kid. You never know. You and I talked before the playoffs that you just never know about as good as he had been, putting a rookie into a Stanley Cup playoff, putting him into game 1 on the road. And he just has continued to show that the moment is not too big for him and that he can handle these high pressure situations.
Exactly. He's handled every challenge in this series. And there have been a few of them where you thought maybe this was the point where you'd see the crack in the rookie's mental game, and he just hasn't. He had the bad bounce goal early in game 2. Then he was brilliant the rest of the way in that game. Got behind by 2 in game 3 and then was brilliant there. Even in game 1, when Minnesota was ahead 4-1, he made the 2 big stops late in the second period that could have allowed Dallas to creep back in that game. And then, I thought both goalies were terrific last night in game 4, where both teams had opportunities, and it just felt like it was going to take some kind of really special effort to beat one of those 2 guys in the overtime. And it felt to me like we were headed for a second overtime. And then in the final minute, Matt Boldy makes that unbelievable tip. And here you go. Minnesota's heading back to Dallas even in the series.
Great forecheck, with 12 minutes left in regulation. John Hines went with his nuclear option that he likes to keep in the back pocket and not start games with, and that was loading up the top line, which is hard to do without Matt Zuccarello, because it just then, by definition, without a skilled player in Zuccarello, it means that you really are loading up the top line and don't have a lot of so-called skill on the bottom 3 lines. But he goes with Eriksson Ek, Kaprizov, and Boldy. I thought the 3 of them were great in the end of the third period throughout overtime, and then a great forecheck there by Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek and Boldy. Boldy and Eriksson Ek withdrawing some physicality in the corner, and then Tyler Myers, after a couple pushes in the back of of Matt Boldy in the corner. He gets preoccupied with Joel Eriksson-Ek, lets Boldy slip right to the front of the net and the winning goal. So, just a really quality finishing goal to keep that thing from getting reset in the second intermission of overtime, and we'll see where it goes from here.
One
Anthony,
thing I'd like to mention about those
Yep.
lines, though, is I thought that, number one, obviously the Wild get the goal from the Foligno line, and they had gotten the big one in Game 3 from McCarron, so those were kind of the first depth goals that either team had gotten in the series. But the other thing that I thought was significant was when Hines loaded up that top group, I actually thought they got some really good shifts from Hartman, Johansson, Brink, and they didn't score, but they at least kept Dallas honest a little, where it was, okay, the Stars, it isn't just that top group for Minnesota. That line actually had a couple chances to win the game before the Eriksson-Ek, Boldy, Kaprizov line did finish it.
Yeah, Johansson had, I thought, a tremendous game. I thought the way, he showed no fatigue there in the third period and overtime. I thought the whole team, I was amazed at their energy level really in overtime. But Johansson just getting that puck up the ice throughout overtime, I thought he was great. I thought Brink made some really quality defensive plays, was good in the offensive zone. Hopefully the finish will come soon for him. He came close there in overtime, just missed the net a little bit. Tarasenko is the one guy, Anthony, that I'm not seeing a ton from right now. What do you see in his game?
Yeah, I don't think his game's been great, and really that line, Nick Foligno, I thought last night they struggled, and I would imagine that maybe we'll see a change there. Well, if Zuccarello comes back, we obviously will see a change, but and I'm not exactly sure what Hines' first move will be there, but Tarasenko has shown over the course of the year that he can be invisible for a couple of games and then all of a sudden get the puck on his stick and finish, whether it be on that second power play group or just make a play at 5-on-5. So I don't know that I'd say I think he's a guy coming out of the lineup or anything, but that line didn't do much last night. And faceoffs have been an issue for Danila Yurov all year. They have been again in this series. And, that's also a part of it, is when you're starting shifts without the puck. Now, last night, I know Nick Foligno took a fair number of the draws when that line was on the ice, and that helped that a little bit. But there are so many little things going in these games that have been fun to watch. I mean, Hines deciding to change the matchups and go with the Eriksson-Ek line rather than against the Johnston and Rantanen line. He threw him out against Robertson and Duchesne, who you would think would be the lesser challenge, but that's the line that had been dominating and to say dominating is a little bit of a misnomer, but they were getting the better of the Kaprizov and Hartman line. So just making that switch last night when he had last change seemed to trigger a little bit for both of Minnesota's top lines.
Yeah, I thought yesterday was a really good sign for Kirill. I thought he looked much more like himself. Obviously makes the great play on the Faber goal. And I just thought he was much, much better on the forecheck. And now if they can, if they could get Zuccarello back, that would be obviously a huge help for him. What do you think? I mean, if they get Zuccarello back, and by the way, I saw him last night, poke his head into the locker room, so he's alive. We do know that. What do you think if they get Zuccarello back? You were just talking about the lines. Obviously, we know that the Boldy line is going to stay intact. So we look at that third line. Has Brink shown enough to maybe go there? And if Brink shows enough, like, what do you do? Do you pull a Yurov out and play Foligno at center? Do you pull a Nick Foligno out? Because the one thing I will say, even though Nico Sturm would be the easy guy to pull out, don't you think that yesterday
was good.
Huge. I thought, and that line to score the big goal, I think it would not be the greatest move to pull him out of the lineup.
Yeah, this is 100% a guess, but I would think the most likely guys coming out would be Yurov or Nick Foligno, one of those two. I would keep Brink in the game. I liked his game last night.
Yeah.
And, they were using him on the top power play in Zuccarello's spot. He obviously wouldn't be there anymore, but it would be a part of the second power play group. But I thought his game was good. And, but these are all kind of the matchup things that you have to decide. Where do you want a little more offensive punch? And I did think Brink was good defensively too, but Yurov's been such a responsible defensive player all year that it's hard to take him out of the lineup. Those are the decisions the coach has to make, and he only gets one guess. The rest of us get the second guess.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. By the way, that picture, did you really think I stole that from you on X? Like, you do know that their hands are in different places. They have different facial expressions. It's a different angle. In your picture, you did have my bald spot, even though, again, you're oblivious to it or pretending to be. I think you're being intentionally obtuse.
No, I thought I cropped it. I thought I zoomed in on those guys so you couldn't see anybody.
No. You're a very, very bad cropper.
Well, I'll explain it to you later, but I can't access Twitter on my phone. I have to do it through Chrome. So it's been a little bit of a problem with videos and photos and stuff. They don't quite work as well on there. I'm not sure what's going on. Yeah, I did get hacked about maybe a month or so ago, and I figured out how to get access to it again on my computer, but on my phone I can't use the app. I can only use Chrome. So it's been a little bit of a problem, but I'll figure it out when the season's over.
Yep. Let's talk special teams, Anthony. There was one weird shift last night, the last power play, where I think fans have been clamoring for Brock Faber to be on it, but never guessing that it would be Brock Faber instead of Quinn Hughes. I think they were thinking, all right, take Brink off and have just two defensemen and go with more of a, old traditional type power play. I get it's tough because Brock you'd have to go almost a traditional, Brock on the right side because he's never played the left circle or, the one-time spot. So if you're going to put a right shot D there, Spurgeon might make more sense because he's played that position before. It doesn't seem like where they're using Brink on the power play, whether it was net front or bumper, they're utilizing him very much. So what do you think happens if Zuccarello doesn't play in Game 5? Do they go with two defensemen? I mean, I cannot imagine that we're going to see another power play with Quinn not on the number one unit instead of Brock.
I think they'd probably go the same way and keep Faber and Spurgeon on the second power play together. But it might just be time where it's, as we saw during the season a couple times, where you'd get into ruts riding that top power play group where the second group would never even see the ice. And, then Hines would probably pull him in and say, okay, now it's time to give that second group a little bit more. Remember that the power play goal they got in Game 3 was Johansson as a part of the second power play group. And sometimes it just, the top group can get a little stale. Now, Zuccarello is a big part of it, and missing him these last few games has been a part of it. But boy, they have not taken advantage of opportunities. I think it was 1 for 13 over the last 3 games now on the power play.
1 for 15. Yeah, 1 for 15. And the number one unit 0 for 15.
Yeah, and it's the special teams are going to be key, and we knew that coming in. Dallas is the best special teams team in the NHL. I think I was talking about this a little bit on the broadcast last night, that this Dallas team might be the best team the Wild have faced in the playoffs since like those 14 and 15 Blackhawk teams. This team is legit. They're deep on the back end. They're deep up front. They've got an outstanding proven goaltender, and their special teams are off the charts. I mean, this power play for Dallas is historically good. It's the best one in the history of their franchise. They beat the record. The old franchise record was back in the early 80s when they were the Minnesota North Stars. They have the 11th best power play in the history of the league. I mean, this is a big challenge. So yes, Minnesota's penalty kill has to be better, but they are facing a power play that is absolutely electric. And when those guys get it going, man, they're fun to watch. They're a lot like the Wild's top group to watch.
You've heard me talk about the Onyx Hunt app on here for years. Well, make sure you download the Onyx Fish app as well, because before you even pull the boat out of the garage, you can sort lakes by species, trophy potential, and keeper potential, so you're not just guessing and you're going out with a plan. You could also use the Onyx Fish app to filter walleye, bass, panfish, whatever you're chasing, and see species abundance and size data so you actually know what's in the lake before you launch. Everything you need to get there and get on fish is all in one app. Boat ramps, lake access points, public versus private land, points of interest like bait shops and camping. It's all built into the app. No more scrambling around 3 different apps or outdated reports. Onyx Fish gives you the proven fishing area data and local insights that used to take years to learn. So you could do a decade of knowledge all in about 10 minutes. So download Onyx Fish on the App Store or visit onyxmaps.com/fish. Spring fishing is here. Go find a lake you've been driving past for years and finally find out if it's worth the launch. Do I have a can't miss out of this world event that'll make your water worry-free and your home ridiculously cozy and comfy? It's the Aquarius Home Services and Connecticut Customer Appreciation 3-day open house. Aquarius's biggest sale of the year happening Friday, May 1st through Sunday, May 3rd. Enjoy a weekend packed with fun, a delicious pig roast, lots of gifts and prizes, and yes, even a petting zoo for the kiddos on Saturday and Sunday. The open house is jam-packed with all kinds of savings. Up to 30% off Connecticut, the world's most efficient water treatment system. I have it, you'll love it. 20% off salt and water filters. Up to 30% off heating and cooling systems, plus huge savings on generators, water heaters, and more. Plus, bring a water sample from your home or cabin. They'll test it for free while you eat, explore, and score some deals. It's all happening in Little Canada at 694 and 35E, right across from Dock 86. Aquarius Home Services. Go to aquariushomeservices.com right now for all the details and see you there. Aquarius Home Services, earning the right to be recommended.
Are you looking to move a little easier and feel better day to day? Stretch Lab can help. Stretch Lab is the leader in one-on-one assisted stretching with locations across the Twin Cities. Every session is customized, whether you're chasing a loose puck, grinding through men's league, or just trying to keep up with the game. It's not just recovery, it's mobility, prevention, and performance. Tight hips, sore back, it's all about staying in the game, whatever your game looks like. Don't sit this shift out. Book your first stretch today and feel the difference. Life comes with a lot of things to remember, and Great Clips doesn't think your haircut should be one of them. That's why they use clip notes to save your haircut details, so no matter which stylist you see or Great Clips salon you visit, it's easy to feel like the best version of you. So do yourself a favor. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to a great haircut every time. Download the app today. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
That the Heiskanen power play goal shift before that, like that was their least threatening chance. Like the way they were able to move the puck and just do whatever they want with it to set up Johnston in the middle was like a video game. Like it really was amazing. And I don't know how you combat that, because it wasn't like the Wild were out of position on those plays.
Right.
It's like they just have so many options. It really is something to be seen.
Once they get the zone, it feels like it's just a matter of time. Each time they get inside the zone, you're going to need some kind of a spectacular save, and then you've got to be able to just get to a loose puck and get it out of the zone or something. Because once they get set up in the zone, you always just feel like, all right, well, it's just a matter of time before somebody's got it on their stick in a point blank chance, and that's the challenge.
Yep. I think we talked about this last pod, but how good is Heiskanen? I mean, it's just, last night was probably his sloppiest game of the series, and yet he still scores the big goal and comes up with some big defensive plays in overtime. And he's just, man, there's so many players in this league that you don't really appreciate them until you get to watch them on an every night basis. And he's definitely one of them. I mean, he is so good.
Yeah, I agree. And when we talked, I remember talking after the Hughes trade about the way these top three in the Central now compared to each other. When you had all of them had firepower up front, but now you all had firepower on the back end with Heiskanen, Makar, and Hughes. And I think most people just assumed, well, Heiskanen's clearly 3 out of 3 in that group, even though it's a pretty special group. But I'm not so sure. I mean, he in his own zone, I think he's number 1 out of those 3. And he plays a heavy game, a strong game on pucks. He never seems to lose a puck battle. He makes so many little subtle plays where he just disrupts a puck in the corner, is able to knock it up the wall to help his team get out of the zone. He and Lindell they're one of the top deep pair in the league. He's fun to watch, and I think, this is a guy who was taken 1 pick in front of Cale Makar, in fact, in that draft. And for years, I think people just kind of looked and said, whoa, what if Dallas had taken Makar? Well, Makar's a great player, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure they're better with Cale Makar than they are with Miro Heiskanen. He just seems to fit
when I sat
team.
down with Heiskanen in Milan and in last August, he was going on and on about Esa Lindell to me and how he's got to be the most underrated defenseman in the league. And we've seen,
I think he's their Jonas Brodin. He's just sturdy and dependable. He's missed 2 games in the last 4 years. He's a plus 110.
That is not Jonas Brodin.
No, that's not. But he's a plus 110 over those 4 years, which is 4th best in the league. He's led the league in shorthanded minutes 4 years in a row. I mean, I agree with Miro's take. He might be the most underrated defenseman in the league.
Yeah, without a doubt. Jamie Benn Man, this guy. So I thought so I don't know if you remember, I was just looking it up in April 19th, 2023 in that series. He had one of the most egregious dives maybe I've ever seen.
Yep, I remember the dive.
In the Wild series. But the one against Josh Manson like last year or 2 years ago.
It was last year.
Yeah, it was that was worse.
Yep.
But last night, man, this guy, I don't know, how do referees continue to fall for this? Like, regardless, even if he hit his own face with his own stick, let's just say that he actually did.
Yep.
Which I don't even know if it did.
I don't think it did.
That is not a high sticking diner on Brock Faber.
No.
Like, it's just, you know.
And we've talked about this before, that if I was an official, if a guy had fooled me on a dive, I don't think that I would I don't think I'd get fooled twice, because I might miss one the other way, not on purpose, but just because I'd be like, no, you made me look stupid on that one before. I'm going to make sure that you got hit before I give you another call. And I thought Brock Faber's reaction was great, because he looked immediately to the Wild bench saying, like, and I think he thought the Wild had a chance to challenge. And obviously they don't. It's just a matter, if it's a double minor, they can go take a look at it. But it
wasn't a double minor because no stick hit him.
Because no stick hit him. But so when Brock was like, my stick didn't hit him, you could read his lips on our broadcast. So he was letting the Wild bench know, like, whatever it is, it was not my stick. I mean, he knew his stick hadn't made contact with Benn. I don't think he knew at that time that nobody's stick had made contact with Benn. But I mean, this is a guy, it does make you wonder, because these officials miss him slew-footing Matt Boldy, cross-checking Matt Boldy in the back of the head, a couple other cross-checks after whistles, and yet then the one that they do catch is him just taking a flat-out dive. And now Minnesota got...
what the other thing that I don't get is, like, at least Mikko Rantanen makes him look right, like, when he goes down.
Yeah.
Like, Jamie Benn might be the worst, like, actor in maybe hockey history, and it's just they just continue to get fooled by it. It's crazy to me.
I agree. And now there is, this will sound, I don't know what the right way to put this is. There is a skill to being an agitator without getting caught, and Benn is that. So teams have guys like that, and there's a value in them. The guys that I watched Benn last year in that playoff series against Colorado get under the skin of Nathan MacKinnon throughout the series with just little jabs to the shoulder as he's going to the bench, the things that aren't ever going to get called, nor should they get called, but he got Nathan MacKinnon rattled in that series. And there's a skill to that. But then there's the dirty skill of the accidentally on purpose type plays, like the Boldy cross check to the back of the head, that there is nobody that will convince me that wasn't 100% intentional.
Henrik Lundqvist called it out on TNT.
Right. And he was right. And it was, and to say that, well, look he doesn't extend his arms. That's why. It's because he's good at it. He knows that if he extends the arms, he gets called for a penalty, but by doing this, he doesn't. And, I mean, that the one thing I will say is, so he takes the dive, they get the power play goal. I was glad that Minnesota got the break they did on the Ryan Hartman covering the puck in the crease to throw it out on that scrum in front of the net, and because they missed that call, and that would have been, that kind of evened it out. Yeah, it would have been a penalty shot for Dallas. So, Dallas got the power play they shouldn't have and scored.
But it is funny that, I mean, there were a lot of missed calls on the Wild too in that game, but the two penalties that were called, I mean, probably are not penalties. Like, even like Eddie Olchuk, I was talking to him during the first intermission, and he's like, there is no way that I actually think that, that is not your typical, like, Miro Heiskanen pushing Hartman on there, onto the goalie. But he's like, there's like two players in the league that would have been able to stop on a dime there.
But I will tell you, that to me is the difference. Let's put Jamie Benn in that spot. He finds a way to make that look accidental. Like, he might find a way to change his direction just enough, but then still make contact with the goalie accidentally on purpose and not get called, where Hartman barrels into him. And it was a tough one because, it would have been tough for Hartman to stop, but I actually thought it was goaltender interference. And that's a play where you, as the player, you have to you have to try to avoid the goalie. And while it was difficult for Hartman, he didn't really seem to make an attempt to avoid him. And that to me was one of those examples of the difference. Benn would have gotten out to one side and then stuck a leg out and kicked the goalie or something as he went by and made sure he made contact to disrupt the goalie, but found a way to do it without a penalty.
And there's one also where Hartman's MO probably doesn't get him the benefit of the doubt area as well. One other thing I was thinking about last night is the Eriksson Ek push on Miro Heiskanen that wiped out that goal. The whole incidental contact thing with goals being wiped out. All right, that's good, but the Wild caught a break there. That's a penalty.
Except that if you watch it, look at Radek Faksa actually shoves Eriksson Ek into Heiskanen, who then goes into the goaltender. Yeah. So it was kind of like a multi-car pileup. And as we talked about it briefly, I was glad the Wild didn't challenge. I think they'd have lost the challenge. Oh, but if you look at it, Faksa actually shoves Eriksson Ek into Heiskanen, who goes into the goaltender. So it wasn't totally Eriksson.
But let's just talk more generally real quick. That would be my only thing is that is not incidental contact in the what definition of the rule book. So years ago that would have been just a penalty and the goal wiped out. And now because of the incidental contact rule, it's the referees always forget. There are some that's just incidental contact where you impede the goalie's position to make a save, ability to make a save, and you wipe it out. But there are some goalie interference that actually should be a penalty as well. And I still think Eriksson Ek got a little lucky there.
Yeah, perhaps. I was glad that the two most egregious misses to me were the Benn dive and the Hartman putting his hand over the puck in the blue paint. Mm-hmm. The fact that those went one away. Now, who knows? Maybe Dallas wouldn't have scored on the penalty shot, but they did cash in on the power play. And I think it was. I'm glad that that's not what we're talking about today, is that Dallas wins the game 2-1 because Jamie Benn dives and Dallas gets a power play goal.
I just have to read this one. I did ask for X questions, and I know we've already answered this, but Chase Marshall, who has a dog that he named Russo that has grown up really quickly, goes, if Zucca's back, who's out? Man, Tarasenko and his stamina has been a liability out there in the D zone. We talked about that, but I just wanted to give him a shout out because I'm still always amazed that he named his dog Russo. And it's a gorgeous dog, by the way.
Well, does he have a bald spot that he's giving me grief about?
Jack Wagon.
No, is he a high-strung individual that we'll have to meet this dog sometime? But no, I think it's a great question, and it's one.
I want to dog sit this dog.
Yeah. Oh boy, the dog will get sick. Remember when you dog sat Stanley?
Yeah, but I didn't like being accused of so this story goes, you guys were going to a dinner party, so I dog sat Stanley, and Stanley apparently went home and got really sick, and Margot called me up and gave me the 3rd degree.
Wanted to know exactly what you had fed him. Well, you are known to just give in to dogs.
Know that I give Stanley chocolate, some grapes, some no, nothing.
You are known to try to earn the dog's love by giving him treats whenever they want.
Yeah, just like myself.
Yep.
A lot of treats.
I don't know what they'll do. I think I hate to even speculate because those guys, they go back and watch the game so carefully, and there's so many little things that they'll see in a guy's game that even guys like you and I who watch the game probably as closely as anybody else. Sometimes I liken it to back in my old coaching days where I'd have people say, well, this guy got beat deep. I'll be like, well, you don't even know what his responsibility was on the particular defense that we were playing on that play. Yeah. And I think a lot of times fans for hockey, they don't really understand exactly what the responsibilities are coming back into your own zone or on your breakouts or on your coverages or things like that. So I hate to even speculate because sometimes you might say, well, what I noticed from this guy is that he turned the puck over a couple times and didn't really make anything happen. But then those guys who watch the film go back and say, well, but in his own zone, he made this play, where this other guy was the guy who was actually supposed to be on this play or was supposed to be in this spot for the breakout, was supposed to be in this spot on the coverage. So, my first instinct would be that I would keep Brink in the lineup and one of Yurov or Nick Foligno would probably be my odd man out, but that's just my a first take without going back and watching the game.
Yeah, I do think Nico Sturm earned another game. So, well, Anthony, what's your prediction for Game 5?
I hate to make predictions like this, but I think it's going to be a tough game for Minnesota, because I think at some point in this series, Dallas is going to cash in on a 5-on-5 chance. I mean, Minnesota has been so much better than them. The Wild are the best in terms of goal differential, the best even strength team in the playoffs right now at +8. And they've been dominant throughout this series. I think there's going to be a night where Dallas scores at even strength. And I still believe all of this, not to oversimplify, but this all comes down to discipline for Minnesota, because I don't see how they slow that Dallas power play. So as long as Minnesota stays 3 times short or less, I like their chances. But if it gets to 4, they're going to have a hard time, because I don't see the Wild scoring 4 or 5 against this Dallas club. I think the games they win are going to have to be 3-2, that type of game. I mean, maybe 4 if you go to overtime, but I just don't see a 6-4 kind of win for Minnesota in this series.
Yeah, Marcus Foligno pretty much echoed that last night. He said that the one thing they have to do is continue to be smart. And we saw last night, they only gave up 2 power plays to Dallas, and Dallas scored on both of them. Well, Anthony, good show. We will be back after Game 5 the next day as well. Thanks to our incredible sponsors, Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems, Great Clips, Stretch Lab, and Onyx Maps. Thanks, everybody.
So much coming out, there's nothing